The Bold Prophecy. Hello everyone, welcome back to Historian. Today we're going back to a time when the world looked very different. Imagine the mid-1990s. China was just starting to wake up, its economy beginning to stir. While the West saw a developing nation, the leadership in Beijing was already drafting a blueprint for total global dominance. In 1996, a book was published by the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, a think tank directly under the State Council. It was titled, "What Does China Dream of in the 21st Century?" This wasn't just a collection of essays, it was a grand, precise, decade-by-decade timeline of how China intended to dismantle the American-led world order. Today, we're going to look at that timeline, see what they got right, and analyze exactly where their insane project hit a brick wall. Phase 1, the European harvest. The first phase of their plan was to conquer Europe economically, of course. Their target for the year 2000 was to overtake France and Germany. They predicted a GDP of $2.3 trillion. Now, if we look at the actual numbers from 2000, China's GDP was only about $1.2 trillion. On the surface, they failed. But there was a catch. The Chinese experts argued that if you factored in the return of Hong Kong and Macau, the greater China economy would already be breathing down the necks of the European giants. And they weren't entirely wrong. By 2005, China officially surpassed France to become the fifth largest economy. Just 2 years later, in 2007, they pushed Germany down to fourth. This early success gave Beijing a sense of inevitability. They felt they were on an unstoppable trajectory. Phase 2, dethroning the rising sun, 2010. The next target on their hit list was Japan. For decades, Japan had been the undisputed #2 economy in the world. China's 1990s strategy predicted they would seize that spot by 2010. This is where the prophecy became terrifyingly accurate. In 2010, China recorded a GDP of $6.6 trillion, officially overtaking Japan's $5.8 trillion. It was a psychological turning point for the entire world. The Made in China engine was firing on all cylinders. Their automotive industry, which they predicted would hit 10 million units by 2010, actually hit that milestone a year early, in 2009. By 2024, they were producing over 31 million vehicles. In their eyes, the roadmap was perfect. Only one obstacle remained: the United States. Phase 3. The Great Collision. The grand strategy had one ultimate goal. By 2020, China would surpass the U.S. as the world's largest economy. They even went as far as to predict that by 2050, China's economy would be 3.6 times larger than America's. Think about that, a world where the U.S. is just a minor player compared to a Chinese titan. But as we sit here in 2026, we can see that the dream has shattered. What happened? In 2021, China reached its peak relative to the U.S., sitting at 76.4% of American GDP. Everyone thought the overtake was just a matter of time. But then the gap started to widen again. By 2023, China had dropped to 64%. The Chinese scholars of the 90s made a fatal error. They underestimated the American wall. History tells us that the U.S. never lets a challenger simply walk past. Whether it was the British Empire, the Soviet Union, or 1980s Japan, the U.S. has always used its unique combination of financial hegemony, technological sanctions, and geopolitical alliances to suppress rivals. Today, China is facing a barrage of tariffs and high-tech bans that they never saw coming. Conclusion: peak China and the broken dream. Beyond the U.S. pressure, China is rotting from within. The free market that fueled their rise was replaced by rigid state control under the current leadership. Innovation has slowed, the youth unemployment rate is staggering, and the population is shrinking at an alarming rate. Economists now call this peak China. The idea that China has already seen its best days. The 1990s vision of a Chinese century is colliding with the harsh reality of 2026. They wanted to rewrite history, but they forgot that history has a way of repeating itself, especially when you challenge a superpower that refuses to step down. What do you think? Was China's dream ever realistic, or was it always destined to fail? Let's talk about it in the comments below. This has been Historian, and I'll see you in the next episode.